You are welcome to the webinar discussion that will be focusing on housing finance ecosystem, matching housing demand and supply, and the intervention. For all our very important guest speakers, we welcome you. And all our colleagues, great stakeholders who have just connected, the media, we want to appreciate you for connecting with us at this very important period that we're going to be discussing a very crucial issue that has to do with the housing delivery in Nigeria. My name is Festus Adebayo, and I will be the moderator for today's webinar discussion, championed by Housing Development Advocacy Network. And with me today, that will be looking into the issue of housing finance ecosystem, I have with me Mr. Akinwumi Emmanuel, a principal private sector specialist, African Development Bank Group. He is a multi-task finance and economic development professional with over 3 decades of international experience in diversified industries and international development, banking, investment, manufacturing, and business consulting, leveraging resources to foster human development, poverty reduction, and inclusive growth. Mr. Akinwumi, you are welcome on the program today.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
It's also my pleasure to recognize Mr. Mohammed D. Suleiman, a thoroughbred lawyer and administrator with the passion, commitment, and dedication to public service. A director of Financial System Strategy, 2020 Secretariat at the Central Bank of Nigeria. Suleiman has been working diligently for many years, spanning over 20 years at the CBN with the Deputy Governor, Corporate Services Directorate, coordinating the affairs of SS 2020, and representative for further implementing institutions to actualize the goal of positioning Nigeria in the league of World Top 20 economies by the year 2020. Mr. Mohammed Suleiman, we are very happy to have you on the webinar discussion today.
Thank you very much, Adebayo, for having me.
Okay, you are welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Also, I have with me Sam Hodia. Sam Hodia has been involved for over 15 years in housing initiatives for the lower end of the pyramid. His experience spans Habitat for Humanity International and the Fuller Center for Housing, where he led in the Nigeria country program of each organization. He has worked through exciting partnership with global organizations such as Celavi International, and more recently with Real UK, formerly Homeless International, through which he has acquired a vast amount of hands-on practical experience in providing low-income housing. Mr. Sam, I think I usually call you Ambassador of Abuja International Housing Show, and I also always call you Mr. Affordable Housing. It's my pleasure to have you on the program today.
I'm very pleased to be here.
Also with me here today is Mr. Taofeeq Olatiwo. This Olatiwo is not new to this our webinar discussion. We have invited him 2 times. And some of the people who are familiar with this program must have heard much about him. Currently, Mr. Olatiwo is the management team of Nigeria Mortgage Finance Company, where he is the head business operations and ICT. Mr. Taofeeq has previous leadership positions at Shell International, Hewlett Packard in Canada, and many other countries. Mr. Taofeeq Olatiwo, it was a pleasure to have you on the program today.
you very much, Mr. Moderator.
I think it's a great privilege to have with us also this afternoon Dr. Umaru Farouk Aminu. Mr. Farouk Aminu, Head Research and Strategy Management Department of PECO, Nigeria. Mr. Farouk joined the National Pension Commission in August 2005 after spending 14 years in the classroom, where he taught mathematics, computer, and operation research. He was engaged on special national assignment to establish the pension industry in Nigeria after serving on advisory capacity during the period of the legislative process of the pension reform bill by the National Assembly in 2004. Dr. Aminu has a bachelor's degree in mathematics, a postgraduate diploma in computer science, and a PhD in management science operational research. He has been the head of Research and Strategy Management Department of National Pension Commission from 2005 to date. So it's my pleasure to welcome you on the program, Mr. Dr. Farouk. It's my pleasure.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good afternoon all.
I also have with me my very important guest speaker, Mr. Francis Ogumene. Mr. Francis has over 25 years of working experience in the commercial bank, a founding member of Zenith Bank. He has managed many real estate companies in Nigeria and abroad. And today, he will be talking to us from Canada, where he has been lecturing in the University of Toronto. He's a committed, affordable housing advocate in Nigeria. Mr. Francis, Dr. Francis, a pleasure having you here. Sorry.
Thank you so much. And good morning and good afternoon, Nigeria.
You can see it should be around 7 o'clock now in Canada. While in Nigeria here, this is 12, this is some minutes after 12. So we are sorry for waking you up.
That's the problem.
Part of your commitment toward the development of your country. So we welcome you again, Mr. Dr. Francis.
All right, thank you.
Our focus today for our participants who have been joining us, who are connected, and those who are just connecting, is to focus on the housing finance ecosystem, matching housing demand and supply, and the intervention. Let me give this little preamble before I take my first question from the chairman, from the director of CBN FSS 2020. He's going to be the first person that will give us a presentation. And part of our rule today, you will only be allowed to talk for the first round for only 5 minutes. We appreciate if you can abide by the rule so that we can finish this discussion as early as possible. The second round that will be coming, I will tell you the number of minutes to use, depending on how you manage the first 5 minutes that have been given to you. For economic purposes, demand must occur before supply becomes important. However, if demand is more than supply, house prices go up. The Nigerian case of housing demand and supply is very peculiar. It seems to defy all economic model. There's a lot of mismatch between housing demand and supply. We have managed to build houses that are not affordable, and the economic power of the critical mass of the population cannot possess or even rent those houses. Whereas vacancy rate is high, we still have a lot of people living in poor housing conditions simply because of affordability and access to finance. I must emphasize here that COVID-19 has exposed the poor housing condition in this great country. For some of us, health and housing are born by the same father. They are therefore twins. twin brother. And as we move out of COVID-19, it is our hope that the country will think of what to do in providing housing. Housing is key to health. Housing is key to economic productivity. The man who slept well, when he gets to the office, can deliver a lot of productivity. And that is the reason why we have to keep talking on how to make housing development a feasible possible thing, a greater thing in this country. The housing finance ecosystem is looking at institutional framework, it's looking at housing needs, it's looking at business enabling environment, it's looking at mortgage framework, it's looking at the construction sector, it's looking at the financial sector and the lack of mortgages, it's looking at housing microfinance, it's also looking at housing demand and supply. This is how our focus on this program today. I've just set an agenda for my speakers. So it is my pleasure to invite the Director of Central Bank of Nigeria, Barrister Suleiman Mohammed, to tell us what has FSS 2020 been doing in the last few years. This is 2020. What have you been doing for housing finance ecosystem? Can you tell us what you have achieved in 5 minutes?
Well, thank you very much, Adebayo, moderator, for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts and some of the things that we have been doing in FSS 2020. I think first and foremost, it's important for me to put things in perspective so that we lay the background and the foundation as to the reason why the FSS 2020 felt that we need to intervene in the Nigerian housing and mortgage sector. Well, it is on record that the Nigerian housing deficit is estimated to be between 17 and 20 million housing, which translates in monetary terms to a gap of about 60 trillion naira. In other words, for us to be able to meet the target of bridging this gap, Nigeria needs to start to think about the construction of about 900 to 1 million housing units per annum to bridge that gap. Now, if you look at even from the financial system, if you look at the contribution of the mortgage sector to GDP in Nigeria today, the contribution of mortgage to GDP in Nigeria today stands at between 2.8 and 3%. Going further, if you look at the Nigerian house ownership compared to other climes like economies that we can be compared with, like South Africa, Kenya, and Indonesia. The Nigerian house ownership stands at 24% to 25% today, contrary to, as against what obtains in South Africa, having 56% house ownership rate. Kenya has 73%, and Indonesia has 84%. So this, you can see that the majority of the Nigerian housing need today appears to be in the rural area. But the focus of the financial institutions today appears to focus on high-earning individuals who reside in the urban area. But the World Bank prediction estimates that Nigeria, by the year 2050, would have about 65% of the rural populace today living in the urban area, which means there's going to be more pressure on the housing requirement in the urban area, because of the migration. Now, the Nigerian policymakers, looking at this deficiency and the deficit that we have in the system, have moved away from having to rely on the deposit money banks to fund housing in Nigeria by introducing the primary mortgage banks. And today, 35 primary mortgage banks have been licensed in Nigeria with an asset base of about 451 billion, while the advances made by these banks to the sector by way of credit is just about 229 billion. So you can see the shortfall in that area. I mean, if we need about 60 trillion to close the housing gap in Nigeria in the next 6 to 7 or 10 years, you know, this is a far cry from the reality of what we should be doing, having just an exposure of less than 300 billion naira. So now, this in perspective puts us in a very challenging situation that we need to do something moving away from the conventional mortgage model that we have worldwide, like in Europe and America, where reliance is made on collateral management. The interest rate there is low, though. But if you look at the interest rate and the cost of mortgage in Nigeria, it's exorbitant. It's between 20 to 27% interest rate. That makes the cost of housing finance very, very expensive. And if you look at the earning powers of an average Nigerian, that means there's no average Nigerian that can open a mortgage account and access mortgage financing. That alone is enough reason why we need to think outside the box to start to domesticate our own housing finance model that will suit our own Nigerian environment and our own Nigerian peculiarity. So with that, FSS 2020 has come up with the need for us to rethink and to start to move away from the conventional housing finance model that operates worldwide, to see if we can domesticate our own housing finance model that will meet our own requirements. And that is why we have set up an interagency committee called the Housing Finance Ecosystem Committee to come up with a robust and a more sustainable and more realistic financing model for Nigerian housing, which cuts across both private and public sector. Public sector in the sense that there's need for government to come into the provision of social housing with a financing model that is sustainable, and then the private sector to come in with the private sector financing that would be affordable to the average Nigerian, looking at the earning powers of the Nigerian average Nigerian citizen. So with that, I think Mr. Taufik, since he's in the panel, would be able to give more light to the workings of the committee, because he's a member, and the secretariat is, the chairmanship of this committee is the MD of NMRC. And of course, they've done quite a lot. We've even brought in the Governors Forum DG as a member of that committee, because you can't talk about mortgage and housing in Nigeria without the governors, because they are the ones who administer the Land Use Act as it were. So I think with that opening, I'd want to allow other panelists to discuss, hear their perspective, particularly those of them from the private sector, because we are looking at going into the capital market to start to see how we can fund housing finance in Nigeria, leveraging on the pension fund, possibly. And I'm happy to note here that Dr. Farouk is on the panel, and we can hear from his own angle where the infrastructure development on leveraging on the pension fund is today in Nigeria. So with that, Mr. Moderator, I think this has laid the background for us to start having a conversation over how we can come up with and evolve our own domesticated housing finance model in Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, the Director, FSS 2020 had the Central Bank of Nigeria, Malam Muhammad Suleiman, a very, very senior colleague in the bar. You have done well. Thank you for your contribution. But I'd like before.
The quality and quantity of available housing stock in any country measures the development and quality of life of her people. On housing development, I make it my top priority to bring to you trending housing information and day-to-day housing plight of Nigerians.
If me as a civil servant working for my country cannot get access to housing loan, I don't know what else we can do.
Can you imagine that somebody will pay for 2 years rent and he's not sure of the next 3 months money in his pocket?
I also analyze the housing policies and strategies of government with stakeholders.
Let the federal government next level be seen in the area of housing. Nigerians deserve to be housed.
Housing issue is a journey of 1,000 miles. I don't think that anybody can pretend that we are going to close the 17 million homes gap in 5 years.
Housing development is your one-stop source for housing information. Join me.
Aha! I see what's wrong.
What?
The wall doesn't match your elegance.
Then we must do something about it right away.
At Royal Ceramics, we offer you a wide range of beautiful wall and floor tiles designed specially to fit your lifestyle.
So, what do you guys think?
Thank goodness we changed to tiles.
I agree.
Like mother, like daughter.
I'm a steward of a vision both by the government and the board of the Family Homes Fund to lead the delivery of a large-scale housing program that's targeting some of the most vulnerable people in our society. And that vision is around providing up to 500,000 homes up until December 2023, and alongside that, 1.5 million jobs to some of our people who are earning the lowest income in our society. So the mandate is very clear. It's about large-scale housing supply and economic development. To deliver affordable housing It cannot be the sole responsibility of the Family Homes Fund. We need to build strong and trusted partnerships across the sector to ensure that we deliver homes. So we are currently talking to the real estate developers associations, we're talking to housing corporations, we're talking to state governments, we're talking to parastatals, we're even talking to the armed forces. We're working closely with the Federal Ministry of Works, Power and Housing. So a whole range of people we're bringing together, and each of those partners have key roles in ensuring that this program succeeds.
Before I go to the other people, I'd like to know that in the course of my advocacy on the television, we have gone to various streets in Nigeria to have to know whether people even know what we are talking about, mortgage. We discover that the mortgage education is lacking. And we have decided on our own platform that we are going to kill mortgage illiteracy in Nigeria. I can see beautiful ideas we are bringing in, thinking of going to the capital market, thinking of domesticating our own mortgage system. We are giving all that we are not contributing well to the GDP. It shows that you really understand the problem, and from where you are speaking, it shows that you are going somewhere. But please, I need to draw your attention before you go far. The mortgage education is also key. A lot of people don't even know what we are talking about. And that will take me down to PENCOM. Dr. Farouk, good afternoon again. How are you?
Good afternoon. I'm okay.
Every time, people keep asking this question from me. What is PENCOM doing for housing in Nigeria? You have so much money with you. So what is the support of PENCOM in ensuring that contributors have access to finance and are able to afford buying their houses? That is my first question for you for the first 5 minutes of this program today.
Thank you very much for this question. I think the way to start is to at least say that we have two basic responsibilities in National Pension Commission as regulators of the pension industry. The first one, which is key and primary, is to ensure the safety of the pension assets and ensure that people, when they retire, they receive their pensions as and when due. This is our primary responsibility. The secondary responsibility is to ensure that we create more value for people who contributed these monies into the pension funds. So that means we invest the money to generate more money for the contributors. And that's where virtually everything like evolves. But while we do this, we must ensure that the primary responsibility is guarded, strictly and religiously. So if you look at the portfolio of the pension funds, there was this evolution from 2006, when the first contributions were received in May, to where we are today, largely because the pension operators and the pension regulator would have undergone a lot of transition, and we built capacity, and we can add more value. So if you look at our website, you could see all the investment regulations that were issued, which show to you the level of evolution and how fast we have been able to go. Now, in terms of the existing regulation, we could actually invest 20% in some situations, and in some other cases, we could actually invest up to 25% in infrastructure development. This includes housing infrastructure, 15% in infrastructure bonds, and 5% in infrastructure funds. Now, in some situations, we could go more than just 5% in the infrastructure fund, or more than just 15% in the infrastructure bonds. The issue is, how do we invest the monies? We don't go directly. We don't invest, give cash, and say, go and build a road or go and build some housing units. We don't do that. However, you need to come with the supporting instruments, either a fund or a bond, then PFS can buy into the fund or into the bond. And if you look at what we have done so far with agency bonds, that are bonds issued by the Federal Mortgage Bank, PFS invested into them, and they're still investing. So if we have the right instruments, then definitely PFS will go and buy. Of recent time, there was this issue raised by the Office of the Vice President, and there was a meeting which was chaired personally by the Vice President, trying to get the pension funds to invest in housing finance. That actually didn't materialize up to today. I know the secretarial work moved to NMRC. We had about 1 or 2 meetings there. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to conclude on anything. But the PFAs on their own are working on 2 issues: to come up with products that will satisfy the provisions enshrined in the regulation for infrastructure financing and for housing financing. They have gone to some level, but this is yet to be finalized as well, because whatever they come up with, we have to mainstream that into our regulation and review the regulation to accommodate that. There is one important issue that I think we have been working with NMRC. I'm happy Taufik is here. He will also shed light on this. We had some meetings also on that. In terms of implementation of the provisions of Section 89, subsection 2 of the PRA, that section provides that contributors could actually use part of their pension savings to pay their personal equities towards having a primary home. Now, that has not been implemented to date. There are so many things we are waiting for the mortgage guarantee company by the central bank. Eventually, when it came, it was a regulation that people could actually go and set up such mortgage guarantee companies. We wouldn't mind working with any of them, but we are more comfortable working with NMRC in this aspect. Now, the initial discussions we had with NMRC were that can this be implemented in such a way that there is no physical withdrawal of money from the retirement savings account? So what would happen is there will be an added quality to whatever mortgages that are going to be issued, so that it will be easier for NMRC to refinance, and then it will be cheaper for the consumers of such products in terms of the mortgages that are going to purchase. So here we are on this. We haven't really gone so far in terms of implementing Section 89.2. I know we're waiting for some feedback from NRC to be able to review the regulation, make some additions, or at least come up with a working framework on that. So that we are working with, and I believe we are working with the right agencies of government in this aspect. But the most important thing is what the PFS are doing. I think that may be quicker, because that will issue cash. And because PFS are going to invest and generate more value for the contributors, they are managing their retirement savings accounts. That, I think, is going to be easier and faster in terms of making some financial inducement into the housing sector. I know there are several other programs of government that are working, like the FISH program, and providing houses for the public servants in the country. We're also part of that. So I believe that there is so much to be done. And the most important thing is my advice. If the housing sector could come up with products that the PFS can buy, then they will get immediate cash flow into financing housing projects in Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Farouk. I'm sure that a lot of people have been sending me messages because you are so important on this program today. Somebody have just sent me a message now. Please let me ask Dr. Farouk, are they supporting Family Home Fund? He has mentioned FMBN, he has mentioned NMRC. I'll come back to you on that. I think they ask that question because they know that family fund is the one tackling the most vulnerable people in the country, most vulnerable. So if pension fund is looking at those people. So we appreciate the explanation you are giving. I think a lot, maybe even myself, I benefited from your point because I keep asking. I always see you financing project infrastructure in the country. I'm not seeing you financing houses. And now that COVID-19 has come, people are living in slum. The thing is moving like fire. So I'll be back to you. Now I'm moving to African Development Bank. Mr. Akinwumi, we have the pleasure of having you, your big international giant organization. How are you supporting the housing market in Nigeria? That's just a simple question I have for you. Just make the presentation also within 4 or 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much. Before I go to that directly, I would like to remind all of us here that the African Development Bank is in the forefront of eradicating poverty in Africa. And that, of course, includes poverty of shelter, accommodation poverty. And in terms of the bank's work in the country, when we are looking at the subject we are discussing today, we are talking about the ecosystem. So beyond the issue of looking at interest rate is too high, the tenor is too short, we have to look at the entire ecosystem, like the building materials industry. We are talking of water and sanitation. We are talking about power infrastructure. We are talking about security infrastructure. We are talking about data infrastructure, and so on and so forth. The African Development Bank is a silent worker. Silent worker in the sense that you see the hands of the bank in project, but you don't see the face. I will get to that when I'm explaining the instrument of our intervention. This bank is operating using what we call 5 pillars of intervention in Africa, including Nigeria. The first pillar is Power Africa, which also has very good relationship with housing. There are no decent housing without power. The second one is Feed Africa. The third one is Industrialize Africa, and you know the role of industrialization in housing delivery. The fourth one is integration. Integrate Africa. And Nigeria also, we need to integrate. And then lastly, improving the quality of life of African people. There is no quality of life without shelter. Now, coming to what have these combined been doing in Nigeria in terms of providing for the housing ecosystem. When you look at the various instruments that we are deploying for development in the country, for instance, equity, the bank is in the forefront. Actually, I can say it's a principal funder in the establishment of Shelter Afrique, which role is to ensure affordable housing in Africa. And up to today, I believe Shelter Afrique is playing a noble role in that direction. And that is one of the scope of the bank's work, which I call that is unseen. You see the face of Shelter Afrique, but you don't see African Development Bank. What you see is the hand of African Development Bank in that. And recently, where the bank also deployed resources to the establishment of Development Bank of Nigeria. And one of the mandates of that institution is to provide facilities for the mortgage sector. So mortgage banks will actually go to DBN to source for financing. Then we are talking about trade finance, which is being used by some of the practitioners in the housing subsector. They enjoy trade finance facilities for importation for financing of local production of raw materials in the country. And the giant of it all is what we call line of credit. The line of credit at the current, currently, we have over $1 billion deployed to various commercial banks and microfinance institutions, and also local development banks like the Bank of Industry, Nanesi Bank, and so on. And when you look at the hands, you don't see the face of AFDB in this way. When you dig deep down, you will see that all these line of credit we are providing to commercial banks, local development banks, and microfinance institutions, what are they using these resources to finance. You will see a large number of practitioners in the housing ecosystem. You will see cable manufacturers. You will see tile and marble manufacturers. You will see manufacturers of roofing sheets, cement, carpets, furniture. All these are components of the housing delivery, which ordinarily you may not see the face of AFDB there, but you will see the hands of AFDB there. And apart of looking at what we have done, there are some other things we can do much more if projects become bankability. What happens is that you see a lot of borrowers coming to the bank, approaching the bank as if the bank is one of the commercial banks, or approaching the banks as if one is one of the mortgage banks. AFDB is not a mortgage bank. It's not a commercial bank. At the same time, AFDB is there to provide resources, both financial and non-financial, and creating the enabling environment. And the bank creates an enabling environment through institutions. For instance, the Kenya Mortgage Refinancing Company has benefited enormously from the bank's financing. And I expect the Mortgage Refinancing Company of Nigeria to do the same thing. That's why we are on them, and we are putting documents together to make sure that the Mortgage Refinancing Company also is part of AFDB's partners. In Family Homes Fund, AFDB is there, and apart from the financing, even though it's not yet closed, it's not yet completed, apart from the financing, one of the unique delivery in the AFDB platform is to look beyond dollars and naira, to look at other areas. In the packaging of Family Home Funds financing mechanism, for instance, we went into negotiation table with them that they have to allocate some of the resources to train artisans, to provide jobs for women, to provide jobs for the youth, to support innovative practices in housing delivery, and so on and so forth. So, in a nutshell, we also have technical assistance grants, which can be used to support advocacy, even like the one that FESABED is doing. I believe that one of these days you will knock on our doors to see how we can collaborate with your organization to promote what you are doing, because what you are doing is really high. It's a high impact program as far as we are concerned, and we are looking forward to supporting in that direction. And I need to also mention that we have the public sector window, we also have the private sector window, and in the middle of that, we have PPPs. And you are aware that the AFDB is a lead financial institution and the only development financial institution in the financing of Lekki Toll Road. Some of you may be saying, why is Manuel talking about Lekki Toll Road? Are we talking about road, or we are talking about housing? But we are talking about housing ecosystem. Access road is very important. There are a lot of houses built in the middle of nowhere that access road can make a difference and transform those useless assets to useful assets to improve the housing stock in the country. So this is my contribution for the time being, and we talk more as we go along. Thank you very much.
Thank you, African Development Bank. We must appreciate what you have done. Now we're going to the level of the developers, the private sector people who are part of this program. We are still talking about the ecosystem of housing development in Nigeria. And I'll be going to Mr. Samuel Hodia, Mr. Affordable Housing. My question to you today, I will start from what Mr. Akinwumi said, and from what I posted on our platform yesterday. Housing is bigger than shelter. It's not just about building a house. So I need you to tell me, how do you ensure that the houses you are building are affordable?
Thank you very much indeed, Festus. Good afternoon, gentlemen. It's nice to be here on this show. Here at the Millard Fuller Foundation, we have been trying to ensure that every single Nigerian has access to at least a simple decent and affordable house. We are the Nigerian affiliate of the Fuller Center for Housing, headquartered in Americus, Georgia, an organization that was set up by Millard Fuller, who also happens to be the founder of Habitat for Humanity, the world's largest low-income housing provider. So right from the very start, the essence of our organization has always been to meet the needs of those as far down the bottom of the ladder as possible. How do we ensure that houses that we're building are affordable? We first of all need to define what we mean by affordable. You know, that's one of the definitions that has, as it were, almost gone round out of the window. You know, everybody is doing affordable housing. You know, those who are building 100 million houses before and have come down to 50 million will tell you that they're building affordable houses. Those that were building 50 million have come down to 20 million and they say they're building affordable housing. Those that are in the luxury market will tell you they're building affordable luxury. You know, so what do we really mean by affordable housing? You know, we have never really sat down to agree on what affordable housing really is. But for us, our own feelings, our own definition, we believe that affordable housing should be affordable to the median income. We believe that if the houses that you're building cannot be bought or are unaffordable to more than 50% of the population, then it's not truly affordable. It's not housing for the masses, you know. And it's not as if we're there already. I'm not sure there is any organization in Nigeria that is building houses at that sort of level. But, you know, at least it defines where we're trying to go to and where we're trying to reach. In Millard Fuller Foundation, we're very proud to have developed the most affordable housing project in Nigeria for 3 years running. It was First Step International that gave us that award, 2016 to 2019. And just last year, 2019, the well-respected Center for Affordable Housing Finance, based in Johannesburg, in a survey of 52 countries in Africa, found our houses built here in Nasarawa State, in partnership with Real UK, and also now with Family Homes Funds, to be the most affordable houses in the entire continent. So I say that just to say that, look, affordability is very important to us. And I think one of the key ways that we can begin to be more affordable is to put the average man, the common man, at the center of all of our planning. You know, when we're building, who are we really building for? You know, we need to refocus, I think. You know, I think we need a paradigm shift in the entire system. We need to define and look properly and say, look, who is this Nigerian that we want to build for? Who is it that we want to be able to walk into our houses once they're built? That's our passion, that's our focus, that's what we've been doing, and that's what we will continue to do. We're building houses at 2 million, 3 million naira, but that's not enough. You know, there are many people who cannot even afford a house of a million naira, even if you gave them a 10 or 15-year mortgage. You know, so what do we do for people like that? You know, and there are various models that are being looked at across the industry. But for us, you know, we intend to continue to be focused on ensuring, first of all, that our houses are as affordable as possible, that our prices, our price point, the entry point of our houses is as low as possible for the average Nigerian. We're driving our costs down. In a recent study that NMRC carried out, you know, Nigerians were asked, how much are you ready to pay for a 1-bedroom house, a 2-bedroom house, a 3-bedroom house, and so forth, you know? And prices for a 1-bedroom house, for instance, were about 1.2 million naira. So that already gives you an idea of when Nigerians are expecting our price points to be. And that for us is a challenge. You know, we continue to work towards that goal to ensure that they may not be fantastic houses. We have never pretended to be building fantastic houses, you know, but at least they should be basic, they should be strong, they should be houses that endure, you know, but most importantly, they should be houses that, you know, fit the pocket of the average man.
Thank you, Mr. Ahodia. We I appreciate your contributions. I know that you are doing well in the area of affordable housing. And I remember Abuja International Housing Show endorsed your project about 4 or 3 years ago, and I awarded you the most affordable housing project in Nigeria. And I also appreciate you now recognize what you just said. That's not just about luxury, but the necessary basic facility that will make life affordable for whoever that buys the house is very paramount. And on that note, I'll be going down to Canada. I'm leaving Nigeria on the webinar now to Canada to meet Dr. Francis Ugwebele. Dr. Francis, what is your advice on developing the Nigerian housing market? In Nigeria, you have been part of this struggle for a long time. You have managed real estate company. You have managed, I remember you were once the general manager in Zenith Bank. Please tell us, what do you think from your experience in Canada? We'll just have 5 minutes to hear your views on what is your advice on developing the housing market in Nigeria.
Okay, thank you very much, Festus, and thank you so much, my fellow Nigerians. I want to approach this issue from a completely different angle. The reason is that I'm an impatient, I'm getting tired of Nigerians repeating the same mistake all over. I'm in my 50s now, late 50s. I have seen government officials speaking the same language year in, year out, and we remain in the same spot. Let me quickly acknowledge the excellent work of PENCOM, Dr. Umaru. Welcome Akiwumi, my friend. I hope he still remembers me. And CBN guy. But hear my voice. We are talking about, I am interested in profiling solution. So what I think is becoming a bridge too far, and we are not really ready to address the issue of housing shortage in Nigeria. We are not ready. Now hear my voice clearly. The nearest to what we are supposed to be doing is what Architect Sam Odia is doing in Nasarawa State. That's the nearest. In fact, I must commend him. I have been to his place. If you have not been there, please visit. That's the nearest. Maybe as time goes on, I'll see the work of the Family Home Fund. Beyond that, we are not addressing the issue. We are begging the question about housing in Nigeria. I am going to provide solutions, but why provide solutions? Permit me if I hit the nail of the source of the problem. What are we looking for? I pay attention to what the CBN man mentioned. It took time to address the shortcoming. 60 trillion naira is what we need. That's enough to make a man skip his heart. And I took time to see how they said Primary Mortgage Bank has invested 240 billion. And I also know that the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria also invested 250 billion to Estate Development Fund and another 85 billion to Nigerians. Listen to my argument. We are about 200 million Nigerians. Are we really interested in tackling the issue of housing shortages in Nigeria? I don't think we are ready. If we are ready, this is what I am suggesting, and I think we should do. We don't need to reinvent the wheel, please. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. That's the beauty of the Nigerian situation today. Look at the development model you find in the US, in UK, in Canada. Simply copy and paste. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. What we are doing so far, we are not going around the cycle. I'll give you a classical example. With due respect, Federal Mortgage Bank, which is supposed to be the backbone of the structure, has collected from Nigerian workers over 350 billion so far. How many mortgages have they given out? 25,000. 25,000. In a pool of not less than 60 million Nigerians who have contributed that money. Is that not a wake-up call? Something is missing somewhere. If the primary mortgage institution has given out 240 billion as loan in the mortgage sector, and Federal Mortgage Bank has given over 250 billion. That gives you over almost $500 million. And yet, we're having 17 to 20 million housing deficit. Ladies and gentlemen, something is missing in the equation. Something is missing. We are not yet, let's specifically go ahead and address it. At 25,000 mortgage provided so far by Federal Mortgage Bank, you have only given less than 0.05%. That's an abysmal failure. We need to address it. In 40 years of existence, in developed line, that is what some mortgage banks give in less than 3 months. Why are they struggling? I acknowledge that struggle. I know they are constrained. Like I said, I am interested in profiling solution. Quickly, this is the error. The federal government, the day the federal government and government institutions realize that there's a link between housing development, that's on the demand side, the mortgage, housing development, employment provision, and poverty alleviation. The day we are able to link these three together, the government will realize that, listen, if I'm providing affordable houses, I'm not just providing houses, I'm providing employment. I am tackling poverty. I'm also lifting the living standard of Nigeria. I feel government has not been able to link these three sectors together. You will hear people say, and my gentleman from CBN also mentioned it correctly, housing and mortgage scheme contribute 71% of the GDP in Canada. That is true. 68% in the US, and so on and so forth. In Nigeria, it said it's 2.5 to 3%. I'm sure it is even far below that. But if the government realizes that if I invest in housing seriously in the entire ecosystem, I will not only be beefing up the GDP in Nigeria, I'll be providing employment and solving social problems. Then we will come in and say, okay, gentlemen, how do we address this issue? I commend the work of FSS. I commend the work of the Nigerian Mortgage Refinancing Company, the interest drawback, the mortgage guarantee scheme. But hold on. Those are what I call ornaments. You are preparing to buy beautiful gold, trinkets, and nice dresses for a baby that you have not even conceived. NMROC, well done. But let me tell you the truth. We have to come to terms. What do we need to jumpstart this process? What did Canada do? What did US do? Simple. In 1938, I go back to Freddie Mac and Freddie May. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. At that time, President Roosevelt simply took the bull by the horn, political will, and brought government investment into housing. And they went into massive housing development. At the same time, he created the Freddie Mac, who provided the framework for development and ensuring that the properties developed are given to the workers who need it, and creating a framework where mortgages are paid back. That was how they tackled it. Today, what we are doing in Nigeria, we are begging the question. The government needs to invest in my initial advocate, not less than 500 billion. But let's start with the 50 billion they have done. Excellent. A journey of 1,000 miles starts with a step. Even the 50 billion they have done, that is good. But how will they invest it? Can they, for God's sake, I've done my calculation. Leave the Mulafula Estate work, he's doing a perfect job there. In Mulafula Estate, for instance, a simple secondary road to Mulafula Estate in Nasarawa could have solved this problem. Drive down there. Fantastic houses he has built, excellent structure, but no access road. The 50 billion you have, let me give you a classical example quickly, could actually build property of 10 million per apartment, 5,000 units. To start with, put 3,500 in Lagos, 500 in Abuja, 1,000 in Port Harcourt, another 500 in Kano, to test on my model. These are houses built for Nigerian workers. That is, A worker who is able currently paying rent of 500,000 naira a year to 1 million naira a year can afford that and pay over 15, 20 years. If government does that, every year, the government will get a feedback of at least 5 billion in mortgage repayment, and that money will go back into rebuilding. If you are building 5,000 units a year, and people see that Nigerian workers are able to get this accommodation and live in and pay back, foreign investors will come. For now, as beautiful as PENCOM is, I love what Umaru said. PENCOM will not just go and distribute money. PENCOM is a very fat cow, but I fear that except we put a functional mortgage system on ground with institutional framework, we should not tamper with pension fund. If the structure on ground is good, pension could provide a solution to the Nigerian mortgage system and the housing equation. So I'm only saying that, please, can the government rise up a little bit and look at the link between GDP growth, housing and mortgage sector, and unemployment? If they can understand this three link, I am sure the government will take a different stand and tackle the housing issue properly. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Francis, I appreciate you. You are passionate. I know. That's interesting. I've advocated on our platform, in our advocacy group, several times that the government should have political will. I've even advocated that great men like Samuel Odia, Akinwumi, Dr. Umaru, Alhaji Suleiman should go into politics. So maybe by going, we'll be able to have a good voice. I think it was last night I spoke with the Minister for Agriculture, and the two of us were discussing. Festus, how do we connect housing that you are making noise about all the time? You're not allowing us to sleep. How do you connect it to agriculture, housing and agriculture? That's what I'm looking for now. How people will be working in the farm, and after from the productivity they are making, that will enable them to have a property in some melodious size. How do we use agriculture that government is having political will to push, stimulate the growth of housing in Nigeria? Mr. Francis, thank you. I will be coming back to you. Now I'll be going to another very prominent estate developer in Nigeria, Urban Shelter. And I have Mr. Mukta Liu, the executive director. I would like to ask you, you have heard what they have said, talking about the ecosystem. You don't just build a house without a road. I'm aware that Urban Shelter have been doing road infrastructure, access road to their sites. Come, how have you been able to deliver affordable housing? We do reference to the definition given by Samuel Odia. Odia has given his definition, I'm going to adopt it. He's not using it on the salary. He said, we are here the 50% of the people who can afford it. Please, Urban Shelter, tell us what you are doing and how will you be able to deliver good estates at affordable rates with good ecosystem, all of them actively working.
Thank you very much for having me. I want to thank all the panelists as well for their in-depth contribution. This is it's a complex issue, and both sides of the coin have to be tackled. I would actually say that the supply side, which is what we're doing on the side of the developer, is less complex. When you have a housing deficit and you need housing, this is a financial problem by and large. Building houses is not a big issue. At least this is my view. Nigerians, developers can give you houses from whatever range possible, from low to high end that can compete with houses that are built in other parts of the world. For us, what we've done, we've recognized that there is a cost and a price threshold that we cannot go below. And this is simply a fact of doing business.
when you factor all the cost inputs in the chain of what it amounts to build and develop a house or an estate, you will find it's impossible to build it at less than a particular threshold. Consequently, you can't price it below a certain threshold as well. So for instance, if you're building an estate, and we talked about how there is a mass migration from rural areas to urban centers because this is where employment is. So at the least, what is developed in what is considered an urban center, and again, this definition could be perhaps, can vary between what Urban Shelter considers an urban center, and perhaps what, let's say, Millard Fuller considers an urban center. But by and large, if you're within the vicinity of a city and you're providing shelter and accommodation within the city, it has to carry minimum amenities that denizens of a city need to use. When you look at that, and you've started to mention some of them, it means you have to have access to the estate. There needs to be good access within the estate. You need to have water and electrical infrastructure. So you're providing water to people and you're providing electricity to people. I'm giving you an instance of all the cost inputs. These aren't free. You also add the cost of the land itself. Now, if you're a business entity, whatever money you use has a cost as well. By the time you factor all of these, you'll find there's a natural threshold in terms of costing and subsequently price that houses within urban centers can't go below. For us, what we've been able to do is this. We've addressed the cost side significantly. We happen to be the largest producers of clay bricks in the country. This is a huge cost input in terms of construction. So instead of using blocks, we tend to use our bricks, which are cheaper and work better in the environment that we function in. That's a cost reduction. We look at how to save costs without sacrificing the quality of the houses. We've done all of this and have successfully introduced into the market a house that sells within what we consider Abuja, where you are, and this is around the neighborhood of the Lube side and so on, that sells for around 5 million for a house. Now, this 5 million, you have to unpack that. It's not the same as comparing us to an entity that does the type of houses that Millard Fuller is doing. I don't think that would be a fair comparison. But for commercial developer, we're quite proud of introducing something like this. That's one. Secondly, we did a proprietary payment system which allows customers to pay for a house over a slightly longer period of time. Typically, developers give you around 12 to 18 months. We put out a proprietary model that allows clients to pay for a house in a 5-year period. So in a small microcosmic scale, we're addressing both the cost side by bringing the cost and price of our houses down. And then we're offering an intermediary type of payment that allows clients to pay for houses over a slightly longer period of time. So this is what Urban Shelter is doing. Now, I want to get to the larger point, as all the panelists are talking about. This is just what one entity is doing. And even if all of the developers come around to give you a house that's around 5 million or thereabout, and they give you a longer period to pay, I don't think this will actually solve the larger problem because it's a much more complex and interrelated problem. We started to talk about it. Here's why. If you're going to buy a house, you have to go and get these very complex instruments called mortgages. In a very simple sense, this is just a loan that you'll take. We're talking now personalistically, we're talking in personal terms. This is a loan that you and I will take. We have to pay it back with interest. Now, in order to be in the category of people that can take out such a loan, you first have to be employed, one. You need to be gainfully employed, two. That's important. Because for all the relevant metrics, a person can only devote about 40 to 50% of their income towards housing, whether it is rent or paying down your mortgage payment, whether this is a 10, 20, 30-year mortgage, whatever the mortgage period is. Your individual earnings can only contribute 50%. You can only use 50% of your income to pay towards a mortgage. By the time you're paying 60, 70%, there's a definition for that. This is standard when you look at World Bank statistics and so on, and pretty much anywhere. You're considered cost burden. If you're cost burdened, you are not likely to get a loan from these entities that give out the loans. This explains why the 20,000 disbursement that the other gentleman was mentioning, it's not a surprise. These banks have underwriting standards that they use. They have to look at who can actually afford these loans. And even if you were to take the entire 60 trillion naira needed to solve this problem, and you flood the entire financial ecosystem with it, you will still have a rather dismal ratio of disbursement similar to what the gentleman mentioned. So the way I look at it is, let's get back to the individual, to the household. How do we increase individual and household earnings? There's no surprise. These other countries that have a high mortgage penetration are also high per capita income countries. The United States, 60% mortgage to GDP ratio, per capita income around 60,000. Europe, 70 to 75% mortgage to GDP ratio, per capita income around 60 to 70,000. If you do a fairer comparison in terms of emerging markets and look at South Africa, they have 30% mortgage to GDP ratio. Their per capita income is around 13,000. Nigeria, the last I looked at the statistics, I think we're still under 1%, but I stand corrected based on what was mentioned. We're now at, even if it's 3%. Our per capita income is around $2,300. So we simply do not have the earnings to where you can have mass penetration of mortgage. This is my view as far as the larger issue to why this problem continues to linger. I really believe, being in the sector, that there's been a lot of progress. I've interacted and had several discussions, and we've signed several agreements with the FHA, FMBN, the Mortgage Refinance Company. They are all doing what they can, in my view. And from 2015 or 14 to where this issue was really popularized, mostly by FESIDEB, you find that there have been gains made. You have FHFL that came about because of changes. This is a derivative of policy. From all of these discussions, policy came to where you need an entity called Federal Homes Fund that will look at both sides of the equation. These are gains. My simple point is that we're going to solve this problem. It's going to take a lot of time. And the best way to think of why that is to look at how long will it take for household earnings to rise to where people can actually afford mortgages in mass. Because I would contend, if you give a 0% interest, you won't get people accessing a mortgage.
Thank you, Mr. Mukhtar. I must acknowledge that Oba Shetta is one of the leading real estate development companies in Nigeria. In fact, they are one of the partners of Abuja International Housing Show. They are our partner in the advocacy. You will see us being able to run a TV program every week. Van Shetta has a segment there, which meaning they consider the advocacy as a sensitive thing that they must support. And luckily for me, the chairman of Van Shetta was my managing director when I was in Youth Corps. Imagine that. You see live. So Van Shetta, I appreciate your contributions on this program today. Now I'll be going to the organization that powered this webinar discussion, that organized it, and that is the Nigerian Mortgage Refinance Company. And I've also been told that the NMRC is the secretariat of FSS 2020. The MD is the chairman of the FSS 2020, the ecosystem group. Now, Mr. Taufik, my question for you, the first question I want you to address, before telling us what you have done, what you have been doing, where you are, and where you are going. I want you to start from that question somebody asked. What are you doing in enlightening people on your activities? Somebody sent a question here now that he doesn't even know the meaning, the difference between Federal Mortgage Bank and NMRC. Similarly, during the last week webinar discussion, somebody sent a message also that, can I please explain to them the difference in the mandates of family-owned fund and Federal Mortgage Bank? If we are going to enlighten people on this, we can't do it alone, just like the way we are having this webinar. Please, what are you doing about mortgage education? Don't tell me what you did 2 years ago. Tell me what you are doing now and what you intend to do. And also tell me what your secretary, you already told me what they did 2 years ago. I'm not interested. What are you doing now? And what do you intend to do? Because a lot of people, media are here now, they want to hear from you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator, and good afternoon, Nigerians. I'm so delighted to be here again and to talk through the housing finance ecosystem. But before then, I would like to crave your indulgence to welcome my MD, who is also on this call as an attendee, Mr. Kende Ogudimo. Thank you so much for joining. So NMRC, in a nutshell, is a secondary mortgage market, and we provide liquidity to the primary mortgage banks, to the lenders. And the key thing in terms of the objectives of NMRC is to make homes affordable to Nigerians and for them to have easy access to finance to be able to purchase their homes. And that's what's been the underpinning strategy for NMRC right from when we started full operations in 2015. And since then, we've been partnering with all the key stakeholders, the states, in terms of passing the modern mortgage and foreclosure laws. We've been working with the primary mortgage lenders to ensure we provide them with liquidity to back up their assets and for them to be able to create more mortgages at affordable rates. We've been working with all the key stakeholders, even the developers, in terms of seeing how to stimulate that part of the industry with uniform underwriting standards, as well as the advocacy, training them and using the ecosystem, the mortgage market system that we have developed for the country. We've done this quite for a number of developers for what we call as aggregators, and we're still moving on with it. So this is very critical for us, and that's actually one of the things why we've been working very closely with CBN, as well as FSS 2020. And PENCOM already mentioned earlier on our involvement with them. SEC is also one of the teams that we've been working with very closely. So with that, I really like to thank you so much. This webinar is coming, against the backdrop of all the other webinars we've been having, laying the foundation and also creating more awareness, as well as the understanding of the housing markets in Nigeria. So what essentially do we want to achieve with this housing finance ecosystem that was created by FSS 2020 and CBN, with NMRC MD being the chair of this? So we've last year during Q4 forum for FSS 2020, the director gave us the guidance that we should start this together with the director of Office D at that time, that's at CBN. And we formed a team of about 13 plus organizations partnering together to see how to develop this market. We're not just looking at the financial institutions, but we're looking at the entire value chain for housing, right from the land titling point all the way to even the bond issuance. So we're looking at all the various elements that's looking at both the demand and the supply. And now the question is it demand and supply, or is it supply and demand? So there's always this chicken and egg situation. But we're beginning to see very clearly that in terms of housing, it has to be demand first before supply because of the capital outlay of the housing. The decision to buy a home can be only one time for some people in their lifetime. It's not something you just go to the market as if you're buying a pair of shoes, or you want to buy a shirt or tie. It's something you have to think about. You have to have that income. You have to have the strategy. You have to think about. It's a lifetime thing, and you have to get it right. If you get it wrong, then you're done for. But that's not what we want. We want people to be able to come to the market and buy the right, kind of homes that would serve themselves and their families. And that's why we're working through all of these items. So I'd like to just talk a bit more about what we've been doing in terms of the housing finance ecosystem that has been put together. So I'm representing all the companies. I'll just mention them very quickly. So we've got the CBN plus FSS 2020, NMRC as the chair, MWFL, that's the Mortgage Warehouse and Funding Limited as the co-chair. We've been having the Nigeria Governors Forum. The executive director has been attending our meetings and has been giving us very good input into it. Federal Ministry of Works and Housing, they are really, really part of this. Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria is part of it, very active, and they're pushing forward. Family Homes Funds, they've been part of this as well. MBAN, that's Mortgage Bankers Association of Nigeria. PENCOM, as you've heard earlier on. SEC, that's the Security Exchange Commission. FMDQ, they've been part of it. Even ICRC, that's the Infrastructure Concession Regulatory Commission. They are part of it, and REDAN. And this is not in any particular order. We are all actively involved, and we've been working together very closely to ensure we have a robust housing finance ecosystem in Nigeria. So what have we been doing since the time they put us together in Q4 2019? Firstly, we said we should look at where we are as a country. So where we are, pulling all the things, all the initiatives by different organizations, and try to see how to align them. So once we were able to gather this information, and I'll just run through it very quickly after this slide, after this talk. So the next thing is where we are. Then we now flow to where do we want to be as a nation, as a country. And we're all talking through this together based on all the experiences that we've had and all the initiatives that we are working through. Now, understanding where we want to be, which we were able to identify where we want to be. And I'm really happy we have some eminent panelists here today that they've talked about where we should be as a nation. And this will serve as inputs into what we'll be building, using to build our roadmap. Now, so how do we get there? Developing the roadmap, where do we converge? Where do we align? What are the building blocks? What do we need to do? What are the new policies that we have to put in place? And thereafter, we now come up with a final report. As I speak now, we've started doing some kind of put together of the report. And we're looking at, using these to stimulate the interest of what is going to come up eventually after the whole exercise that we're doing. Now, just to give some kind of outlay of some 9 key building blocks, what I would say called the 9 planets for the housing finance ecosystem. The way we see it now, it may change, with time. One of the fundamental things is the institutional framework that we have, the housing policy and institutions for housing delivery. What are the policies? We've got the National Housing Policy 2012, that's 8 years ago, that was delivered by the Federal Ministry of Works and Housing. We've got the Urban Central Development Policy as well. Then the next thing is housing needs, the population, the needs, the deficit that we have, the challenge of how do we achieve that? The third, building block is the business enabling environment. And that has to do with ownership of land, statutory rights, and things like that with the state government or local government or federal government. And the fourth one is the mortgage framework itself, which we've all talked about. Then construction sector. And this is looking at the supply side of the equation. So we're looking at all the building construction all the way to actually the delivery of the construction, how it contributes to the economy of the nation, the GDP and the likes. Then the sixth one is around the financial sector and the lack of mortgages that we all know. We do not have enough quality mortgages. Now, even if we have all the money in the world, there are no mortgages there to create. And that's the truth. NMRC is there. We've got, we have the money to even create the mortgages, but there are no quality assets that we can really create mortgages for, or people that are not coming forward. The cost of money is really high, and all the challenges that we have around it.
Thank you.
Then housing microfinance. Then overall, the underlying one is around the governance. This should not be a one-off thing. It's not a one-off exercise. It has to be a process, an ongoing process, annual thing. Every year, we're able to say, this is the way we're going to be doing it. This is the data to back up, what we're doing. At this point, I'd like to ask a question, and I want it to be something that we think about. Let's say from the analysis, from the report of the CBN governor in terms of the intervention for COVID-19, he decides to say we're going to have 1 trillion naira for the housing market today. Where would you expect us to spend the money, to put the money into? Is it going to be in the supply side? Is it going to be in the demand side? Or are we going to split it? How do we split it? What ratio? Is it to so these are the things that we have to start thinking about. And I want people to think about it and see what they come up with, to see how easy it is to come up with the policy statement.
Thank you, Mr. Latiwo. You have done very well. We just have a few minutes. I thought you people should be able to do like 3 rounds before the closure of the program. But from all indications, I don't know unless you can respond fast to the remaining few. And questions are coming in. Some of you can read some of the questions. Some are coming toward my phone, and the one that are on the system, you can see it. The one on my phone, you don't have access to it. Now I'm going back to Alhaji Mohammed Suleiman of the FS 2020, the director. I'm going back to you. Just like Mr. Latiwo said a few minutes ago, said you are giving, if CBN give a 500 billion intervention, how will you apply it? Between housing, demand and supply, will you put the money in the demand side or you will put the money on the supply side? I want to ask you, Alhaji Suleiman, where do you think should be the point of intervention? Where do you think on your own? You also want to speak. Where do you think the point of intervention?
Thank you, Festus. I think that question asked by Tawfiq is very key. I say it's key because over time we've had interventions in different sectors that had never yielded any desirable result. I think this time around we have to structure it in such a way that it will be able to meet the objective of what it's meant for. To my mind, I think yes, that intervention is quite laudable, and I think I commend the Central Bank Governor for bringing it in, because it's an area that we have always identified as a very worrisome area, particularly when you look at the housing finance in Nigeria. If you look at the cost of land administration, cost of acquisition of land, cost of building materials, even cost of credit, you realize that, and then of course, to cap it up, the earning powers of an average Nigerian, then you know that housing finance can only succeed if you touch on all these aspects of the value chain. Otherwise, we are just scratching the surface. Well, coming down to that question, answering that question, my personal opinion, not the opinion of Central Bank, not the opinion of the government, but my personal opinion on this is I think the intervention should be on both sectors, both in the supply side and in the demand side. In the supply side, I think we need to start to encourage entrepreneurs or entities that are involved in the manufacture of cheap building materials. By that would translate into making house ownership or even house construction more affordable than it is today. In the demand side, I think it is important to support the financial institutions that will be engaged in funding some of these interventions. If you don't have the money, how do you extend your credit? And I think one of the major obstacles inhibiting the success of housing finance in Nigeria is the lack of capacity by primary mortgage institutions in Nigeria. Even if you look at it from the primary mortgage bank and the secondary mortgage bank, NMRC is a secondary mortgage bank. Today, how much can NMRC proudly say they can afford to pump into the primary market to support the primary market in delivering what is desirable? I think we really, like Francis had said, we really need to think outside the box and to start to address this thing squarely. If we don't do that, we can't get anywhere.
Thank you so much. I love that. You just need to think out of the box. You said that in your first presentation. You re-emphasize it in your second presentation. You are appreciated. Now I'm going to PENCOM, and I'm using the same instruments, the same question. If CBN give a 500 billion as intervention, what do you say should be the point of intervention on your own view on that? Can you tell us? Doctor, yes.
If you look at the housing sector, I'm not really very much knowledgeable on that. So it's going to be difficult for me to say professionally this is how the intervention should go. But one thing that's very clear to us in the National Pension Commission is that we have monies or people that want to invest somewhere to create a lot of returns so that their pensions make some meaning to them when they retire. Now, we need the housing sector to be professional enough to be able to understand that this is how we want our problems addressed in terms of financial intervention and in terms of providing the housing stock out. So for us, really, it is going to be important if we have a professional housing sector that does not only see itself as a housing sector that will just take money and build housing stock, but build a robust chain, of all the activities of the sector, and create values around all the stock gaps that are going to be part of that chain. Now, if you come to me as a pension regulator and you ask me, how do you think you can add value? Well, I can add value if I can provide the finance. How do I provide the finance? I need structured instruments to help me allow PFS to deploy the pension contributions into housing development. But indeed, creating an industry, a housing industry that is capable of knowing what to do what and what to do. So I think personally, if you have some money, deploy that money in value creation, in capacity building for the industry to be able to understand itself. Dr. Francis talked to us about what is happening in the UK, the housing, the mortgage sector, the products that they developed. And indeed, we had some problems sometimes back that created some financial problems across the globe. But that notwithstanding, it's something that has been tested over time. Can our housing sector also be able to develop in such a way that they know what they want, and when they get the money, this is what they're going to do with that money? For us, people's are just money supply. So I need that industry that can give me the instrument that I can be comfortable in deploying the monies to support the aid.
Thank you. Thank you, Doctor. I expect you to tell me that, after all, you like research and capacity building. So I expected that. You really impressed me in that area. Now, let me give you an information. For the whole of 2 months, I was advertising a property for sale. And the cost of that property is 2.5 million. I only need Nigeria, the person that will buy the property to only pay 10%. Then I will give the person access to go there. We were receiving calls every day. In fact, I have a desk officer for that. At the end of the day, we got over 5,000 people that confirm interest. When we now told them to pay 10%, so they can move, take possession of the house. The people that remained of 5,000 was 10. It was then I saw the reality of the sector I've been promoting for years, that the demand side is immense. There's no affordability. Somebody asked me a question here now. He said, do we really know where the deficit is in terms of location and income? Who really are the people that really need the houses we are talking about? Who really? Do those people really have? Why is it that they cannot own the house? And I'm going now to Mr. Francis before I come back to the African Development Bank. Mr. Francis, if 500 billion as announced by the CBN is to be made available, what would you recommend to be the point of intervention? Is it the interest rates? Is it the demand side? Is it the supply side?
Okay, let me quickly answer your first thought. I'll do it quickly. I acknowledge what, like I said, let me call it an impression. I'm not comparing what Mulafula is doing with maybe what Urban Shetta is doing. No, I'm saying Mulafula and Federal Home Fund are dealing on a different sector and they are doing a good job. I am interested in advocating for that demand side that have workers that earn money now and pay regular rent, that they can afford to convert that rent to mortgage. If you give 500 billion now, this is the first thing they should do. Wash my hand. The government should develop a strong developmental institutional framework. That sector or that institution should be able to pick tested estate developers, not the one that we have to go and build 500 units and they will lay the foundation and it will fail. No. Tested estate developers that will build to taste, to standard, right? When they complete it, within the time limit, that particular institution, we should be able to allocate these completed houses to workers. Now, that system will create the mortgage. So the workers get the accommodation and pays a monthly mortgage. Now, it's going around now like a cycle. The monthly mortgage the workers pays come back to fertilize the system. That is how you will create a robust mortgage development program. So if that 500 billion comes in, a developmental institutional framework must be created. The interest rate, peg it at this Federal Mortgage Bank fantastic 6% a year. That's okay. Put it there, but get tested developers and get the system to allocate it to be paying. Now, the question is demand or supply. Let me confess to you. Are we doubting that Nigeria need houses? Are you saying that if I built 5,000 two-bedroom apartment in Lagos and it's completed and I'm ready to allocate for 15-year payment, that apartment will be vacant for the next 1 year? That's not possible. The issue of demand is not in doubt, except we are telling ourselves lies that the 70 million is a facade. And I don't think it's a facade, it's truth. We lack such things. So the demand is not a problem. My problem now is the framework that will ensure tested developers build to standard, deliver on time, and a system that will allocate to workers who will move in and pay regularly. The fund comes back again as mortgage payment for continuous development. That is the way we will continually build in the range of, even if it is 20,000 annually, we will address it. If you give me 500 billion, the first is that where is that developmental framework? Brilliant guys in Federal Mortgage Bank, brilliant mind in Pencom, but that structure that will ensure that you don't get a contract to build and you fail. There's no room for failure. That structure that will identify workers, not money bag, that will buy 10 houses and resell. workers that need these houses and allocate to them so that they start paying at that 6% interest rate. That is the way to go. And then the 500 billion is not a grant. It's not a grant. It's a first-class investment. And you'll be shocked. What they did in US in 1938, they only paid back in 2019 after 80 years. So that same thing is what I'm advocating.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I thank you. I want to go to Mr. Akinwumi of the African Development Bank. You can see the fantastic work that the FSS 2020 is doing. I'm privileged to know about this yesterday. I have not been able to know much because I'm sure we didn't cover the last assignment. Now, a lot of people have sent me messages commending me for the kind of revelations I brought out about NMRC. A lot of people don't even know that NMRC is performing. But to God be the glory, this website in the last 2 weeks, featuring the MD, featuring Mr. Taufik, has said that a lot of works. Now, Mr. Akinwumi, I'm on a crossroad. My crossroad is that after all these beautiful jobs have been done, intervention and call, the minister, I don't know whether the people in the ministry, I'm sure people in the ministry are also connected to this program. Let them hear. They will come and say our mandate is housing. And by this reason, NMRC have no reason to do anything. I remember one minister told me that against Tukudu sometimes some years ago, and I reported it. And I think the president got it and told the minister of finance to please, they carried the minister woman of housing there along. Mr. Akinwumi, how would this not be a barrier? 500 billion intervention. And at the end of the day, it goes to the Federal Ministry of Works and Housing. All this idea of FSS 2020, beautiful idea from NMRC, great work of Family Home Fund, Femi Adewale, and all that FMBN have said. How are we going to cross the road without ministry or parastatal barriers? Mr. Akinwumi?
Yeah. The first assignment is to use it as a catalyst for resource mobilization. That is, the 500 billion will not just be 500 billion. Through the 500 billion being used as a catalyst, we can easily raise additional 1 trillion naira on a ratio 1:2 basis. That is, if the CBN come forward and say, and knock on the door of BFIs, we have these 500 billion naira, I want to pump them into the housing sector. We need your partnership. We need your help. I can assure you that 1 trillion naira will follow. So we are not discussing 500 billion anymore. We are discussing 1.5 trillion naira available to fund mortgages. Then how do we go from there? Like my friend Francis said, we know each other in Canada for many years. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. What are we reinventing the wheel for? There are best practices all over the world where we can tap into. Look at the issue of which one of our panelists also mentioned about infrastructure, housing development without access road, without infrastructures. With that 1.5 trillion naira, we can do model community housing. What is model community housing in Canada, for instance? Any housing development is like Nigeria is doing its own development in the opposite. When you want to develop housing estate in Canada, what happens? The first step is to look for a suitable land. The first thing they do is to build access road leading to that site, followed by power infrastructure, followed by water and sanitation infrastructure, followed by telecom infrastructure, and then the likes of public schools will be taking slots where they will build educational infrastructure like primary and secondary schools. The Catholic school board will take their own slots. They will build schools there. In Nigeria, let's talk in Nigeria parlance. Even the Muslim Association of Nigeria, they can build their own schools there. So even before starting with brick and mortars, all of those things are in place. And then they now go to the demand side. They advertise. We are about to build these houses, 200 units or 1,000 units. If you are interested, come and pay deposit and buy your form. They prepare beautiful brochures that when you see them, say, oh my goodness, I would like to live here. So the issue of demand side will be taken care of. People will start paying deposits. And the deposit will be done in such a very convenient manner. They can spread the $50,000 over 2 years. You'll be paying every 3 months from your salary or from your income. So before they start building the houses, the resources are already available. And this is an area where the government partnership is very important. It's very difficult for the private sector to do it all alone. At the same time, the government cannot do it all alone. What we have been doing in this country, more or less, is like a culture of wastage. Like this 500 billion is going to be thrown to the culture of wastage if it's not properly planned with DFIs as a partner. Another advantage you get from DFI as a partner is they are like a silent policeman. They monitor the processes. They ensure there is governance and management. They ensure there is environmental and social management systems. They make sure there are check and balances. And the resources will be released in tranches. When you achieve this milestone, you get the next allocation. When you achieve that, you get the next allocation and it will be monitored. So going to Latin's question, the resources will be deployed to both the demand side and the supply side. But in what percentage is not what we can discuss in this forum. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Akinwumi. My colleagues in the media and all other participants who are connected with this program, I'm sure you are not disappointed with the quality of personalities I brought here today and the quality of information that they are giving to us. I can assure you that in the next 24 hours, the recorded video clip of this webinar discussion will be made available so you can start doing your work without any barrier. Now we're going to private developer. Mr. Hodia, much has been said, and you yourself have seen. You have heard a lot from FSS 2020. You have heard a lot from what NFRC has been doing. You have seen that even the African Development Bank said, come on, we are part of you. We are ready to support you. So my question to you now is, have you heard all these things on this program so far? What do you think is the way forward? Practical way forward. In 2 minutes.
There's no silver bullet. And I think really the Nigerian market has defied so many solutions. I beg to disagree with my brother Francis, about not reinventing the wheel. It just appears that things that seem to work so well in other climes, when they get to Nigeria, begin to develop legs. But really, in terms of the way forward, I think one of the key things is that we really need to address the demand side. If I was to decide where the 1 trillion naira or the 500 billion naira was going to go, I think it needs to be focused on the demand side. I think we need to ensure that people have easy access, and it's not just about the money being there. It's about the money being easily accessible by people. We hear stories of people waiting months and months for mortgages to be prepared. So it's not just about the money being there, but we need to fine-tune systems or develop systems that make things easy. My sister applied for her mortgage in New York online, and within a week it was all approved online. I'm not sure she had to go to the bank at all. So we need to just make things easier. There was a time when we would wait 1 month for a country check to be cleared, but things have changed now. Now it's the same 24 hours, that you get value for your money. So we can improve systems, things can be made to move much faster. I think time, yes, we have a lot of developers out there who can put out the right products onto the market, but we need to ensure that the offtake is there, ready and willing to take it up once it's delivered. So that for me is perhaps what I would want to focus on.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Now I'm going to Urban Shelter, Mr. Mukhtar. My question to you is this. You're also part of the 500 billion intervention coming. This thing is no more a dream. It's already been announced. But I want to ask you, what is your drive in attracting off-takers in order to stimulate demand in Urban Shelter? What is your drive in attracting off-takers in order to stimulate demand?
I think from our side, what we do, we appeal to a particular demographic and we make sure the houses that we provide are serving their specific needs. Again, it's important to make a counter distinction between what we do, standard commercial developers, and what my colleague Millard Fuller does. So we have to provide the requisite infrastructure at our cost so that we can have off-takers for these houses. So you're talking about putting roads, access to water, electricity, backup electricity, and all of these things, and just giving people a good house. This is a model that has worked for us in terms of taking. Now, again, this is all supply side, right? This 500 billion, to be honest, I see it as a sort of subsidy and it won't be sustainable. But since they've approved it, fantastic. As far as where it should go, it's complex. But I would say to look very closely at how to get individuals to be able to afford these mortgages. That's all an off-taker is someone who can afford a mortgage. House and mortgage are synonymous with each other for this discussion. So I would see how they can take this 500 billion to get individuals to be able to afford mortgages. It's not going to be easy, but it should be interesting to see how they go about it.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Mr. Taufik, in 2 minutes, because my time is fast spent. So in 2 minutes, tell us what in your home, if 500 billion is given to you, where will you go, right or left? Demand or supply?
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. So what I'll do is, personally, I will do a split of 40-60, or let me put it back, 60-40. So 60 for demand side and 40 for supply side. And this is the way I would spend the demand side. I'm going to ensure that, so if it is 500 billion, so that means about 300 billion would be for demand side. And I will ensure that I get a financial institution that will manage it together with the state. So for each state, we've got 36 states plus the federal capital territory. I'm going to make an average allocation. I know it's not going to be the same for each state, but an average of 8 billion per state. And that's going to take us to something like 294 thereabout. And that will ensure that each state that would have access should pass the modern mortgage and foreclosure law to adopt it and use the uniform underwriting standard. But the demand side is going to be such that it's for creation of mortgages. Because once you're able to create mortgages and people know they have access at single-digit rate, that would help them to, be able to pay back, to improve their affordability, then there will be the stimulation from the demand side to go to the market. And this is what I'll look for in demand. For supply, I'm going to apply the remaining 200 billion to supply to help them, develop the market in terms of the construction. But then the bulk of the money would go to demand. Then the remaining 5 billion, I probably just allocate to an entity, call it, Housing Eco Finance System, or maybe National Housing Commission, or whatever name we want to call it, that will manage this properly and will become a sustainable organization that will provide this kind of environment for us year in, year out. And that's the way I'm going to look at it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. We have been on the webinar discussion. I'll be focusing on housing finance ecosystem, matching housing demand and supply, and the intervention. My speakers have been from African Development Bank, from NMRC, Central Bank of Nigeria, from PENCO, from Obansheta, from Fuller Housing Foundation. We'll be going on break for a few seconds. We'll be right back.
The quality and quantity of available housing stock in any country measures the development and quality of life of her people. On housing development, I make it my top priority to bring to you trending housing information and day-to-day housing plight of Nigerians.
If me as a civil servant working for my country cannot get access to housing loan, I don't know what else we can do.
Can you imagine that somebody will pay for 2 years rent and he's not sure of the next 3 months money in his pocket?
I also analyze the housing policies and strategies of government with stakeholders.
Let the federal government next level be seen in the area of housing. Nigerians deserve to be housed.
Housing issue is a journey of 1,000 miles. I don't think that anybody can pretend that we are going to close the 17 million homes gap in 5 years.
Housing development is your one-stop source for housing information. Join me.
Aha! I see what's wrong.
What?
The wall doesn't match your elegance.
Then we must do something about it right away.
At Royal Ceramics, we offer you a wide range of beautiful wall and floor tiles designed specially to fit your lifestyle.
So, what do you guys think?
Thank goodness we changed to tiles.
I agree.
Like mother, like daughter.
I'm a steward of a vision both by the government and the board of the Family Homes Fund to lead the delivery of a large-scale housing program that's targeting some of the most vulnerable people in our society. And that vision is around providing up to 500,000 homes up until December 2023, and alongside that, 1.5 million jobs to some of our people who are earning the lowest income in our society. So the mandate is very clear. It's about large-scale housing supply and economic development. To deliver affordable housing It cannot be the sole responsibility of the Family Homes Fund. We need to build strong and trusted partnerships across the sector to ensure that we deliver homes. So we are currently talking to the real estate developers associations, we're talking to housing corporations, we're talking to state governments, we're talking to parastatals, we're even talking to the armed forces. We're working closely with the Federal Ministry of Works, Power and Housing. So a whole range of people we're bringing together, and each of those partners have key roles in ensuring that this program succeeds.
You are welcome back. To all our participants, we want to appreciate you. Some of you have been connected to us for the past 1.5 hours. And to all my very important guest speakers, my colleagues in the media, I must announce to the speakers that some of the statement presentations on this webinar discussion will go public, and some of them will be used on our platform on TVC, and will also be used on the Africa Independent Television. We must acknowledge Nigeria Mortgage Finance Company, who has come up with this collaboration, that this ecosystem webinar discussion must take place. And I must thank them for this, for coming up with this idea. I hope in the next few days, weeks, we should be having more collaboration to sensitize the public on what they are doing. Just as I said earlier, that much needs to be done in the area of what is taking place in FSS 2020 committee. Some of the beautiful things I saw, I've gotten a big paper, about 20 pages, on what they'll be doing. And some of these materials will be useful for us. So the need for collaboration cannot be overemphasized. We have brought on this program the trio of FMBN, NMRC, Family Home Fund, MD, and they've spoken. The era of competition has been buried. We are in the era of working together. So we are happy. On the housing development program on television at HDAN, we will not relent in ensuring that all of us work together. By the end of today, I should be handing over to the Office of the Vice President, the Committee of Sustainability, a video clip as they requested for it, of all the webinar discussions that we have done. I'm sure their representative also have been connected, saying beautiful ideas you guys have been have presented here today. Just like somebody sent a message to me that the problem with this country seems not to be about ideas anymore. That Nigerians are ruling in Canada, go to the hospital, you see them, they are the best, in America, and in many other places. And that we just need to look, find a way to solve the problem in this our environment. Just like Mr. Odia said, he said when you bring beautiful ideas from outside the country, you bring it to Nigeria, all of a sudden the thing will just develop a wing and something will happen to it. On a final note, I want all of you here to say your last statement on this program, just in 1 minute. Your last statement will be focusing on housing finance ecosystem, matching housing demand and supply together. Let me start from Mr. Sam Odia. Your last statement on this program today, I know you are a estate developer, you are very, very passionate in delivering affordable houses. Please, in one statement, what is your statement on this program I have to do that you think we assist you in the delivery of affordable housing?
Keep ordinary people in focus. Keep the ordinary people in focus. It's as simple as that.
Thank you. Ordinary people should be the focus of government policy. Thank you, Mr. Odia. I tell the word that you said so, that our focus, our policy should be on ordinary people on the street. Mr. Mukhtar, let me hear from you your last statement on this program. You also know where the shoe pitches you. You have been in the system. And I think I live in your estate. I hope you can still remember.
I hope you like it there. want to just keep it simple. I would agree. Focus should be on the individual, the household. I think we should have a massive push towards investment in health, investment in education, getting massive employment, and then earnings will go up. When earnings go up, people can afford to buy houses. This is a very simple relationship. So that'll be my suggestion. The financial system will take care of itself, in my view, once these are sorted. That's the general relationship.
Thank you so much. Now, Dr. Francis Owemele, what will be your last statement on this webinar discussion today?
If you bring the system that works in Canada into Nigeria, focus on the Nigerian virus, the Nigerian factor that kills a good system. Focus on that, that system will work in Nigeria. And I believe very much, sooner than you expect, you'll see the development that will happen in Nigeria very soon.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. That virus in Nigeria, that virus. Thank you, my brother. It's very optimistic about a better Nigeria housing sector. Now, these are individuals we have invited on the program. Now they have spoken. Now, I'm going to talk to people that are representing institutions, because I remember that Dr. Umaru took permission to be here. Mr. Kikumi, he forced me to write a letter to African Development Bank before he could be on this program today. So, let me start from Dr. Umaru. What will be your last statement on this program? In fact, I have a lot of messages concerning you. Do you mean this man not said that they're going to be releasing money for housing? Sorry, they are not for, maybe you need to remind them that you are not into dispensing of cash, you are not a commercial bank. Please, your last statement on this program.
Yes. I mean, National Pension Commission believes that everybody has to have that social structure that is going to support after retirement, not just the pension money, but housing and other health issues. Our take is that the industry should be able to develop the right instruments that will support pension assets pension funds to be deployed to support developments in the housing sector.
Thank you, Dr. Farouk. Now, to Mr. Taufik, my partner in hosting this program, let me allow you to speak before other two personalities. Thank you. Your last statement on this program. I know you're right. I'm very passionate, yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. So housing is a basic need for everyone, and we believe we should have it. We should give us people the opportunity to have affordable housing and access to finance. And I want to also establish here today that the housing finance ecosystem is really looking across board to bring everybody on board to ensure we're able to resolve these issues and to kill the virus, just like Dr. Francis said, for us to move forward. Thank you.
I'm happy you are thinking in my way. I was also trying to tell you that there's need to increase your team. So you have already said that. And you have also said that to kill the virus is very, very important. Now to Mr. Akiwumi of African Development Bank. We'd like to hear your last statement on this program today.
What I'm saying is that my last take on this is for us to digress from individualistic project model and focus on collaboration and partnership, also focusing on community housing, because housing is more than, home is more than housing, okay? Community housing that has infrastructures, just as access roads, health infrastructure, educational infrastructure, water and sanitation, power, security, and all of that. So that when people are living in a neighborhood, they know that they are really living in a decent home or decent house. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The era of collaboration. You see, in every disability, there's always an ability. COVID-19 has brought this powerful collaboration among stakeholders in the housing industry. And I think I must appreciate that. And as he has suggested, it must continue. We do our best to champion collaboration, bye-bye to the individualistic approach. And now, the chairman of SSF FSS 2020. Who will be the last speaker on this webinar today?
Thank you very much, Festus Adebayo. I think my last take here, talking about collaboration. The FSS 2020 is a platform bringing in stakeholders together to address our identified problems, so we can think together and come up with solutions to our problems. In this field, in this area, in this sector, in the mortgage sector, finance and credit is the major setback. Now, with the Housing Finance Ecosystem Committee, I think all hands must be on deck. We must think outside the box. We must come together and establish and develop a Nigerian domesticated housing finance model that will work for our people, so that tomorrow we'll look back and say, yes, we've been part of this project of success. That's all that I would have to say for this moment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, the Director of FSS 2020 at the Central Bank of Nigeria. I can really agree with you. I have a very great friend of mine who once told me that Festus, real estate is finance, and finance is real estate. And that is why I appreciate that your last submission on this webinar platform today. On this note, I want to say a very big thank you to all the institutions who have responded favorably to our invitation to have this webinar discussion on ecosystem of demand and supply. African Development Bank, does anybody join who have connected from African Development Bank as participants of this program? We are saying thank you for releasing Mr. Kiwubi Emmanuel for us to participate on this program. I want to thank PENCOM, Dr. Farouk Uman. We also have people connected from PENCOM. We are saying thank you to the MD as well for releasing this vibrant Nigerian who believe so much in housing development for us on this program today. I want to say thank you, a big thank you to Mr. Dr. Farouk. I want to say a very big thank you to Dr. Francis Owendene. I've known you for a period of time. I know how vibrant you are. At various times we have disagreed, and at various times we have agreed. And our disagreement is always based on how to move Nigerian housing sector forward. You are one Nigerian that I so much respect because of your passion. I think I spoke to you about this, that we need for you to join this program about 24 hours ago. And you accepted it. And you told me that the time 12 o'clock is 7 a.m. is Canada, and that despite, you will be with me. I want to thank you for your commitment to the development of this great country. I want to thank Mr. Sam Odia. You have been partnering all along. I want to appreciate you for what you are doing in the housing sector. Your interest. One thing one thing is what brought us together, and that is you believe in the common man. You believe the ordinary Nigerian should be assisted. And that is the bottom line of my crusade. I've been shouting that during this COVID-19, a lot of people cannot pay their rent. Mortgage banks are already in trouble. People have been sending letters for forbearance. And I've been shouting everywhere. So, Mr. Odia, thank you. Thank you for believing in what we are doing in the Housing Development Advocacy Network. My partner and my friend, Muta Aliyu, I want to appreciate you and tell Obasheta to keep providing beautiful, affordable housing for Nigerians. Mr. Taufik Olatinwo, my partner, you are now my newly found partner in NMRC. Though we are going to disagree, but don't worry, we always sort ourselves out. Since your MD will always be around. I want to thank you for the last few days. You'll be sending messages. We have chatted even at 3 a.m., 2 a.m. I want to thank you for your commitment. Thank you for what you are doing in FSS 2020, the ecosystem committee. And finally, my senior colleague who invited me to Kaduna some times ago hosted me for 1 week for a retreat that have to do with housing development. And that is Mr. Suleiman Mohammed. Thank you for your interest in our sector. I must appreciate you. I've started collecting the names of some of you in Central Bank of Nigeria who have been promoting housing in Nigeria. Very soon, I'm going to take your pictures and put you on different platforms and be celebrating you. Send it to the phone of your governor and deputy governor so that they will know that you are so important to us. I want to say a very big thank you to you for supporting us in organizing this webinar discussion today. Permit me at this point to officially declare this webinar discussion on ecosystem. I wish you all. Bye-bye.